I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Hey you guys, and welcome back to the News du Jour, a calmer space to consume the news. So for today's episode, we have 4 mini stories for you guys, and then we have 2 longer stories to go over that are very interesting. But before we jump into all that, I wanted to remind you guys that for right now, we're doing a promotion where if you send us a Reels that or a video, it doesn't matter, kind of explains why you like News du Jour and how you listen, you can demonstrate that. One of our listeners, sent us a video that was just her talking in her car about why she loves the podcast. Somebody else sent, videos of her doing her dishes and walking the dog, things like that. However you want to represent your relationship to the podcast, we would love to see it, and we would love to repost it and tag you and make it super cute. So in exchange for doing that for us, we would love to buy you a coffee or any type of treat. We'll send you $10 on Venmo to get yourself a donut or any kind of sweet snack or anything that will make you smile, really. Anywho, that is running for the foreseeable future. So if next week you decide you want to make one, or this weekend, send it our way and we would love to send you a coffee. Okay, and so without further ado, we will go ahead and jump into our mini stories for the day. Starting off with, NATO leaders have effectively said that they will allow Ukraine into NATO basically once the war is over with Russia. They said that they cannot allow Ukraine in while the war is ongoing, but they plan to let them in one day in the future. And they're keeping that vague. They have some specifications, but that's the gist of it and the most important parts to understand. That said, I also wanted to let you guys know that President Zelensky of Ukraine met with President Biden yesterday, and the meeting apparently went very well. Zelensky called it on Twitter, quote, very good and powerful, end quote. He went on to say that it was twice as long as they had planned and would have kept going, but it was very meaningful. And the best part of this tweet, he said that he and Biden see a clear way to end this war. Damn, wouldn't that be spectacular? Let's get them out of war and into NATO. Am I right? And then for our third mini story, guys, I saw an image of someone kayaking down a main street in Vermont. And this is just the type of thing I have to tell you guys about when I see it, because I'm just like, this is absurd. Like we talked about yesterday, the floods that are affecting upstate New York are also affecting Vermont right now. And that picture was absolutely comical. It's like he is where a car would be, only you can't even see the street. The flood is so bad. So he's just, taking a quick kayak down Main Street. And then for our last mini story today, the writer's strike. Is there an update? Okay, as of the time I'm recording this, no, there is a midnight deadline on negotiations before a true strike would begin. So I don't have an update as of right now, so I'm going to have to update you guys tomorrow on what happens. And I definitely am on the edge of my seat. Okay, and so for our first longer story today, I do have to issue a content warning. This story involves murder. So we need to discuss Leslie Van Houten out on parole. As promised, we are kicking off today with the story of Leslie Van Houten, a follower of Charles Manson, a convicted murderer, being let out of prison on parole. This is a subject that is incredibly controversial. Just to put put it lightly. Many feel that Leslie should never be able to see the light of day again after being convicted of what she did and being so flippant about it when she was young. But others might say Charles Manson was a sociopath and manipulated young women, especially using coercive control. That his cult-like following was under his spell and on a lot of drugs. And due to their age and naivete, there's just no way that this woman could hold the same beliefs that she did at that time. She spent 53 years in prison for her role in these very high-profile murders, and some believe that she has done her time and she deserves a chance to be an adult away from a cult leader. She will remain on parole for 3 years maximum, so she will be under the supervision of the court in some fashion, at least for a couple years. The governor of California, Gavin Newsom, has reversed Leslie Van Houten's parole 3 times now. So he has thrown her back in jail 3 times, but he has declined to fight this most recent one, citing that his efforts would probably not prove successful. At this point, it seems like she's going to be let out on parole one way or another. Her being let out on parole is actually pretty miraculous, given that she was initially sentenced to death in 1971. But after the death penalty was abolished in California, she had her sentence reduced to life in prison. Leslie was only 19 years old when she committed these murders, and I think it is important to note that they did seem particularly cold-blooded. You know, she described that she stabbed someone 14 to 16 times in the abdomen while other people were holding them down. And then she went and had a chocolate milk out of their fridge. So shit like that really sticks in people's minds, obviously. And it's not something that people let go of very easily. But she was also part of this group and kind of under a cult leader spell. Prior to that day, she had a very troubled past. She started using drugs as a way to escape a troubled household at the age of 15. And she got pregnant at 17 and was forced by her own mother to abort her baby and bury them in the backyard. After this event, she ran away from home, lost in so many ways. Leslie took refuge in the Manson family and their compound, which basically took her in as one of their own and manipulated her. All of the participants in these murders claim to have been using LSD heavily at the time, and not just that day, but like in the days leading up as well. And they genuinely believed at that time that Charles Manson was the second coming of Jesus Christ. And they claim that this is why they followed him blindly when he told them that these murders were part of a grander plan that was ordained by God. Regardless of whether or not she deserves it, though, Leslie will be getting a fresh start. She woke up outside of prison walls for the first time yesterday in over 5 decades. Let's hope that she uses this blank slate for positive change. Okay, and for our second and final story today, I have a content warning for this one as well. This story involves discussion of racism and white nationalism. So guys, a sitting U.S. senator publicly argues that white nationalists are not racists. Okay, so I saw some very alarming comments made by a sitting Republican U.S. senator, a man by the name of Tommy Tuberville, who represents the state of Alabama. He said that white nationalists are not necessarily racists. Oof, this was enough to make me want to bang my head on the desk repeatedly out of frustration. Of course, white nationalists are racist. If you believe one race to be superior than to the others, then you are by definition a racist. This should be obvious, but this is also a man who could not name the 3 branches of government and is a U.S. senator. So how, I will never understand, but this is besides the point. That same senator went on to defend this comment he made for over a day, you guys. But I'm here to tell you that he has now come out and stating firmly that white nationalists are indeed racist. Thank you for that clarification, sir. Major sarcasm. And he's only come out and saying that, changing his opinion, after he was ostracized by fellow GOP members for this incredibly dangerous comment. But kind of bizarre and misguided thinking like this is exactly where racism lurks and hides in America. Someone who really believes that white nationalists might be good people or be misunderstood is facilitating outright blatant racists to continue their destructive behavior and further marginalize and harm communities of color in so many different capacities. My heart hurt reading this story, but I can't say that I'm surprised. We all know that in America, but especially the American South, is fraught with people who are racist adjacent, let's put it that way, meaning they know and are friends with people who are outright racists, and they believe them to be good-hearted people somehow, and it's something that I will never wrap my head around. But the other interesting part of the story is that this all went down with Caitlin Collins of CNN interviewing this man. If you guys remember, Caitlin also recently interviewed a very belligerent Donald Trump. She managed to stay firm and yet congenial with both of these characters, challenging their thinking, but knowing when to move on. I find it amazing that she has become the wrangler of sort of delusional arguments like this, boldly, making statements that have no basis in fact or make any sense. Her measured manner of gently leaning on them to clarify, I think, will go down in history and help her make a name for herself in this particular political climate. She, too, is from the American South, actually, and who knows, she may have practiced these same tactics in her own backyard growing up with men making similar assertions over sweet tea and barbecue. I'll tell you one thing, Caitlin has more patience than I could ever muster. I hope she continues to interview these kinds of leaders and expose their contradictions on into the future. And that is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, "Your heart knows things that your mind cannot explain." If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use to listen. A rate and review or shout out on social media would mean the world to us and help us be able to keep creating the news du jour. But the best way to support all of our work is to become a patron at www.patreon.com/sugarfreemedia. You can also follow us on social media under sugarfreemedia.co on Instagram and just sugarfreemedia, all one word, on TikTok. Any little noises you may hear in the background are my rescue pup. He has a little separation anxiety and always records with me. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour.
Broadcasting from Oklahoma.